First time the state of California is suing two Sacramento landlords for refusing to accept tenants who are on Section 8. Now, this is unprecedented within the state of California, and it has huge impacts on landlords there. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting topic for you today, and it's going over, once again, the whole Section 8 issue. Okay, so the state of California passed a law back in 2020 that made it mandatory for landlords to accept Section 8 tenants. Now, I have said this time and time again, okay? The federal government made it so on purpose that the program was voluntary. It is not a mandatory program. But states have come in there, municipalities have come in there, and they said, hey, we're not happy that landlords aren't taking these tenants because they don't want to deal with the bureaucracy. So we want to force them to deal with it. Rather than saying, hey, we're going to fix the program to make it easier for landlords to work in it, they said, no, we're going to fine those landlords. We're going to throw them in jail. We're going to, punish them for doing something that makes sense to them business-wise, right? So now we've got two landlords who are getting sued up in Sacramento, and it's just, you know what? I'm sick of reading these stories because I don't think that any landlord who doesn't want to take Section 8 should be forced to do it, okay? It's your property. You're the one who decides what tenants are going to go in there. And Section 8 vouchers, they are not a source of income, okay? They are an entitlement. That is completely different than a source of income. A source of income would be like, well, you know what? Here's some money, for doing a job or for something, right? And now you can go spend the money any way you want. Be that on rent, be that on food, be that on liquor, be that on down at the casino. Now, I don't know anybody who could take their Section 8 voucher down to the casino and spend it or go buy liquor with it. Nope, you can't do that because it is not income. God, gee. And if it was income, would the person not have to pay income taxes on it? So yeah, they are using the wrong terminology, or that maybe they don't understand the meaning of the word income, okay? So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, okay? Do you think landlords should be forced to take Section 8 tenants? And do you think more landlords in the state of California are going to be sued by the state? They created a whole agency just so that they could sue landlords. So I won't doubt for 1 second that there are a lot of landlords who are going to face the consequences of not taking Section 8 tenants. And I'm going to let you know what I would do personally after we get into this article. So let's get into it. This article is coming from the LosAngelesTimes.com, and it says, for the first time, California civil rights officials file lawsuit alleging Section 8 discrimination. Let's get into it. California civil rights officials have sued two Sacramento landlords alleging they illegally harassed and evicted a tenant because she paid through a Section 8 voucher. The lawsuit, announced Wednesday, is the first brought by the state civil rights department under a 2020 state law making it illegal for landlords to refuse to accept tenants who pay with subsidies like Section 8. It comes amid criticism from tenant advocates that the department hasn't adequately enforced the law. Throughout the state, rental housing costs are climbing further out of reach for many Californians, Department Director Kevin Kish said in a news release announcing the lawsuit. Source of income discrimination by housing providers exacerbates this trend and is unlawful. So yeah, looking at the article and what it says there, it says that they harassed and evicted a tenant because she paid through a Section 8 housing voucher. So what it sounds like is they had a tenant up in a unit, right? And the tenant wasn't on Section 8 when they moved into the unit. So after the tenant decided they were going to get this housing voucher, they decided, well, I'm going to try to pay the rent here at the apartment where I'm already at with this housing voucher. And the landlord said, well, I'm not going to accept that, okay? We don't take Section 8 here. We don't participate in that program. And so you're going to have to find somewhere else to live. I mean, that to me, this is, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? There's no problem with that in my mind, because when a tenant comes in there and, they've already been there, they've been paying the rent through their personal income, and you've just been getting your checks, everything is good, but then all of a sudden they bring this voucher in there, and it might be, a couple months at least before you get your first check from the government. Not only that, but you have to jump through all the hoops of inspections, etc. So now you might have to do on an apartment where the tenant has already been living, you might have to suddenly spend thousands of dollars doing repairs just so that they can stay there. And on top of that, now you're dealing with all the government bureaucracy, etc. And you know what? A lot of landlords are like, no, I am not doing it. So yeah, I mean, this is a little bit different situation than a tenant who is looking for a new place to live with a Section 8 voucher. So I want to see how this case turns out. Like this is my problem with Section 8, where they tell a landlord, well, in order for you to take this tenant, you have to jump through these hoops, do thousands of dollars worth of work that might not be required for any other tenant. And, it just isn't worth it. It isn't worth it in a lot of cases. The Section 8 program is one of the U.S. government's most powerful tools to keep rental housing affordable and to fight overcrowding and homelessness. Administered by local agencies, Section 8 enables tenants to find housing with private landlords. The rent that tenants pay is capped at around a third of their income, with the federal subsidy making up the difference. The demand for vouchers far exceeds supply, and low-income households can languish on wait lists for years. Yeah, and I understand why they created the program, right? And really, to me, it should be for helping people who are disabled, unable to work for whatever reason, or unable to make enough money to work, to actually pay a rent, or elderly. I believe the elderly should be helped as well. And when I say disabled, I also mean, mentally disabled, and the problem I have is that we have people who basically they are in a cycle of poverty, and they will stay in that cycle of poverty for 20 plus years. They're not disabled, okay? They are not elderly, and yet they want the government to continue to pay for them indefinitely. So that's part of my issue with it, right? And when you think about that, that reminds me a lot about socialism, right? We have these people who want the government to take care of them, want the government to pay all their bills for them, and don't want to have to do anything, and they say, well, the people have to pay, 30%. That's in some cases. In some cases, the government pays 100%. Okay, so don't believe for 1 second that every single tenant out there who's on Section 8 is paying 30% of their income. And even then, right, 30% of their income might be close to nothing. I mean, I have a tenant right now, and their 30% is about $100 a month. Okay, so yeah, and the government pays the rest. Oh, give me a break. Anyway. In the lawsuit filed last month in Sacramento County Superior Court, the state civil rights department alleges that landlords Carlos and Linda Torres sent their tenant Alicia Gonçalves an eviction notice stating that they decided to remove the house from Section 8 program completely. After the tenant told them that evicting her for that reason was illegal, the landlords harassed her, threatened her with violence, and unlawfully locked her out of the home, the department said in a news release. Like if they wanted to get rid of this lady, they should. I mean, the tenant even told them, right? So they were aware of the law, right? There are other ways to get the tenant out of there, but unfortunately, during that time, I think all this was going on during the pandemic, eviction moratorium nonsense. So the landlord's hands might have been tied, and they might have been getting frustrated. Now, I don't know how big this landlord is, right? But I mean, from the wording here, this is a single family house, and this might be a small landlord here who only owns one rental property, and you know what, they want to get this tenant out of that property for whatever reason. They should be allowed to do so, but under the state of California, all their rules, all their regulations, all the bureaucracy going on, small landlords, they don't have a lot of leverage, okay? They don't have a lot of power, and there's not a lot that they can do. That's why, like people are like, oh, well, they're going after these big landlords. Well, you know what? You as that guy who owns one single family house has to comply with all of the exact same rules as the mega landlord with 10,000 units. Okay, so don't sit here and think for 1 second that you're going to get some kind of special privileges just because you're small. The eviction notice and harassment were prompted by the tenant's refusal to continue making additional monthly payments that the Torreses had demanded, but were not required by the voucher program, according to the lawsuit. The Torreses could not immediately be reached for comment. No one answered at a phone number listed in an online database for a Carlos Torres associated with the single-family home that Gonsalves rented, and the voicemail was full. You know, what I hope is that the state of California isn't trying to make an example out of a small, a very small middle class or lower, maybe even lower class landlord, because it's a bad precedent to set, right? It makes basically the landlords who are putting their properties on the market right now, who are just, one house or maybe a couple of homes, it makes them just want to say, screw this. I'm not renting my stuff out. I want to sell it because, the state of California could come after me. And you know what? That's not good for tenants, okay? They're going to end up having less affordable housing available. So, this is, it's a bunch of crap. Very simple. It's a bunch of crap. It's only going to hurt things in the long run. And landlords, you know what? We aren't living in a vacuum here, okay? We're going to react accordingly by determining whether it's even worth doing business in the state.